Hello students, in module 1 we have discussed about water cycle, fresh and saline water, distribution of water bodies. In this module 2 we will discuss about the circulation of ocean water, temperature of ocean water. About temperature of ocean water, although we have discussed before that the salinity of ocean water varies from place to place. Ocean water receives energy from the sun. It is hottest near the equator and the coldest near the poles. One more factor which affects the temperature of ocean water is ocean currents. The warm currents raise the temperature, whereas the cold currents lower the temperature. Students, the water of the oceans is always in motion. The movement of the water takes place in three ways: waves, tides, and ocean currents. Waves and ocean currents are the horizontal movement of ocean water, while tides are the vertical movement. Now about waves. What is waves? When the water on the surface of the ocean rises and falls alternately, they are called waves. The actual forward movement of the water particles in a wave is limited. Therefore, waves travel great distances, but the water particles remains at the same place. Students, do you know why these waves occur? These waves occur due to the horizontal movement of the wind over the surface of the water in the oceans. The upper part of the wave is called crest, and the lower part of the wave is called trough. The vertical distance between the crest and trough is called wave height, and the horizontal distance between any two crests and two troughs is called wavelength. An advancing wave which strikes the shore is called a swash, and a retreating wave is called a backwash. A wave that breaks apart as it approaches land, producing surf, is called a breaker. The huge oceanic waves that are caused due to earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and landslides, both on land or underwater, are known as tsunami. Tsunami has its origin in the Japanese language. The second type of movement that occurs in oceans is called a tide. The alternate rise and fall of the ocean water twice in 24 hours is known as a tide. When the water rises to its highest level, covering much of the shore, it is said to be at a high tide, while when the water falls to its lowest level, it is said to be at a low tide. Tides are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and to some extent pull of the sun on the earth's surface. The moon exerts gravitational pull on the earth as it orbits around it, and this has a great effect on the ocean waters because water is liquid and get freely move about. When sun, moon, and earth are practically in the same straight line, the combined gravitational pull of the sun and moon causes the higher then normal high tide is called spring tide. Spring tides occurs on full moon and new moon day, which means tides occurs twice a month. When the moon is in its first and last quarter, the sun, moon and earth make are at right angle, and thus the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon counteracts each other's effect. Because of this, the high tide is low tide and the low tide is higher at other times. These are called neap tides. Now about importance of tides. Tides are important to us in many ways. The water level near the coast rises due to high tide, so this allows big ships to enter and leave the harbor. Second, during high tide, fishes come near the coast. This helps fishermen to catch a good amount of fish. Third, when rivers flow into the sea, they carry with them large deposits of silt, which they deposit at the mouth of the river. Tides wash away the deposits and prevent siltation of harbors. The last, energy of the tides can be used to generate electricity. So, some tidal power stations have been set up in countries like Canada, Japan, France, and the UK. Ocean currents. Ocean water moves from one part of the ocean to another. This movement of ocean water in the form of a stream in a definite direction on the ocean surface is called an ocean current. These currents transfer the heat absorbed from the sun from one place to another. Ocean currents affect the climate of the region where they flow in. Ocean currents occurs due to variations in the density of ocean waters due to differences in temperature and salinity, direction of the prevailing winds, shape and position of coastlines, rotation of the earth. Circulation of ocean currents is clockwise and anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. Some ocean currents are narrow and swift, but some ocean currents are very broad and they move slowly, so these currents are called drifts. There are two types of currents, warm currents and cold currents. The ocean currents that move from the equatorial region to the poles carry warm water and hence are called warm currents. The ocean currents that move from the poles towards the equator carry cold water and hence are called cold currents. Now here the last point, effects of ocean currents. Ocean currents influence the climate and lives of people living in the coastal areas in a great way. Warm ocean currents increase the temperature of the coastal regions along which they flow, and cold ocean currents decrease the temperature of the coastal regions. Winds blowing over warm currents are moisture bearing and bring rainfall to the coastal areas, whereas winds blowing over cold currents are dry winds. The Gulf Stream is a warm current and the Labrador current is a cold current. When these warm and cold current meet, they produced dense fog, and during the fog visibility is reduces. Because of this, accidents causes. Planktons are tiny organisms. These are a source of food for the fishes. Planktons are found in the places where warm and cold currents meet. Ocean currents facilitate navigation. Warm currents melt icebergs, thus, it helps ships to sail smoothly in the ocean. Ocean current also saves time and fuel of the ship by moving them faster.